Recent polling indicates a noticeable shift in public opinion toward the president. Approval ratings have declined across several key voter groups, including younger voters and independents, in multiple battleground states. Support now appears lower than earlier in the term, a pattern political dot analysts describe as unusual for the early phase of a presidency, which is typically more stable. In Washington, the conversation is changing. Major media outlets are no longer focused solely on policy outcomes. Increasingly, attention has turned to leadership style, decision-making, and the broader direction of the administration. Former officials from previous administrations have publicly voiced concern, while some lawmakers acknowledge that constituents are raising serious questions about the country's political climate. This shift has revived public discussion around the Ursworth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Specifically, Section C, which outlines a process for addressing presidential incapacity, has entered political commentary. Legal experts caution that this mechanism is rare, complex, and historically unprecedented in practice. Importantly, no formal steps have been initiated, and discussions remain speculative. Inside government institutions, daily operations continue. Officials are carrying out their responsibilities while navigating legal, political, and policy challenges. As with any administration, internal disagreements and debate persist, an expected feature of governance during periods of heightened political pressure. Internationally, attention has also intensified. Trade policy decisions and diplomatic messaging are being closely monitored, particularly by U.S. allies, global markets, and foreign governments. Economic and strategic implications remain under scrutiny as uncertainty shapes global reactions. Taken together, this moment reflects a period of political uncertainty and active national debate. How leadership decisions, public and institutional processes evolve in the coming months may prove critical, not only for domestic politics, but for the United States' position on the world stage. As events continue to unfold, observers across the political spectrum are watching closely. What I'm about to explain is not being framed this way anywhere else, and it matters to see the entire picture before it disappears under the next media distraction. What we are witnessing right now is three major crises colliding around a single presidency, all at the same time. First, a legal crisis. A sitting president has filed a lawsuit against his own executive branch, while simultaneously public discussion around the Ursworth Amendment is growing louder. Second, a political collapse. Approval ratings have dropped to 570 with 503 of Americans disapproving. These aren't just weak numbers. Historically, they are devastating. Third, an institutional breakdown. Members of the cabinet, senior military leadership, and even figures within the president's own party are openly questioning whether he is fit to remain in office. This isn't just another bad week for Donald Trump. This is a presidency in free fall. What follows is a step-by-step breakdown of how things reached this point and why the next Chichisaurar hours could decide whether this administration survives. Let's begin with the lawsuit itself, because the details are extraordinary. The case is formally titled Donald J. Trump versus the United States Department of the Treasury, filed in the Southern District of New York. The allegation is that in Jolt, someone inside the IRS unlawfully leaked Trump's tax returns to the media, causing what the lawsuit calls severe emotional distress and massive reputational damage. The compensation being demanded is $10 billion. Pause on that figure for a moment. $10 billion is more than the annual GDP of dozens of countries. It is twice the yearly budget of the Environmental Protection Agency, and it is being demanded over the exposure of financial information that every other modern president released voluntarily. Now, here is where the situation becomes truly surreal. The plaintiff is Donald Trump. The defendant is the United States Treasury Department. That department is currently led by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who was appointed by Trump just weeks ago. In other words, Trump is suing a department run by his own appointee. It gets even stranger. The Treasury Department is being represented by the Department of Justice. The Attorney General leading the DOJ is Pam Bondi, who was also appointed by Trump. So the president controls the department being sued and the lawyers defending it. This is not a dispute between independent parties. It is a sitting president attempting to move $10 billion from the U.S. Treasury into his own hands through a process he effectively oversees on both sides. In more than 2 centuries of American constitutional history, no sitting president has ever sued his own executive branch for personal financial benefit. Not Washington, not Lincoln, not even Nixon during Watergate attempted anything like this. To understand why this lawsuit exists at all, we need to revisit the tax returns. Every president since Gerald Ford voluntarily released them. It was never legally required, but it was a long-standing transparency norm. Trump refused. He repeatedly promised they would be released, often claiming they were under audit. They never were until they were leaked in Arsenling Jolt. Those documents revealed that in 10 of the 15 years examined, Trump paid 0 federal income. In both Arsenling and Arsenling, he paid just T by worst total. Most Americans paid more in taxes than a man who publicly claimed to be a billionaire. That raises a simple question. Were the tax returns embarrassing because they revealed aggressive tax avoidance, or because they exposed that the image of extreme wealth may not have been real? Now, consider the consequences. If Trump were to win this case and receive $10 billion from the Treasury, it would establish a precedent where presidents could sue the government for reputational harm and turn the office into a mechanism for personal enrichment. Compounding this is the fact that Trump appointed over federal judges during his first term, including 3 Supreme Court justices. This lawsuit is not accidental. It is calculated. At the same time, the political numbers are collapsing. According to recent Pew Research data, Trump's approval sits at 500 censure T, with disapproval at 500 loser E. Among Hispanic voters, approval is 500 arcerlil.